So hi, welcome everyone. It's another Focus Friday session. What month is it now? February. Hope everyone's doing well. We appreciate everyone that comes out. Um, Renee, you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. Happy Focus Fridays. Great to be here.
Don't forget, along with Focus Fridays, we also have monthly virtual user groups. So any information that you can get, feel free to attend. Okay, with that, I'm just going to jump right in. Starting off talking about defines, but in order to talk about defines, I also need to explain a bit about expressions. So we're going to talk about the different types of expressions, where they can be used, and location, 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 which will determine if you're going to use this as a define or a compute. So I wanted to do my, the movie trailer voice in a world with no expressions, but it just doesn't quite work for me. Um, a simple table request, we have table file car print, and we're going to print the fields that we have defined in the car, the real fields. The master file says, these are the order of the fields and the format. But a lot of times that's not going to quite give you what you want. In this case, we have dealer cost and retail cost, but what if you wanted profit? Well, we don't have a profit field. So in a world with no expressions, you can't do that. So enter expressions. Expressions are defined by types, and the type is what is the result type of the expression. So an alpha expression will be something that returns an alpha, a numeric returns a number, an I, a P, or a D. A date expression returns a date, et cetera, et cetera. You've seen most of these, I'm sure. You might not have seen the Boolean. A Boolean says field name equals, and then the expression is field one equals field two. Notice there's no test, there's no if in here. There's no if then else and then value. So what happens is we evaluate field one, and if it's equal to field two, the result is true. So true being a non-zero result. If it's false, then you get a zero. But because I don't have a field format, we use the default field format of a D12.2, so it's numeric. And again, there's no if. So it's basically just, run this expression and either it's true or it's false. We also have simple versus compound. A simple is field name equals a simple single expression. Compound would be multiple expressions. So here I have if country equals England and car equals Jaguar, then yes, else no. So other designations, expression can be a constant. A constant is just equal to a value, not a field, not an expression, just equal to a value. An expression can be a variable or a field. So you can use dialog manager variables, you can go to a field, or you can go to your constant. It can be conditional with if then else, and it can use functions. The one that's coming to mind right also. So where can they be used? We can use expressions can be used pretty much everywhere. Dialog manager. I thought I fixed that. Dialog manager. So in a variable, we can say dash set variable name and then equals and then have our expression. In a define, which we're going to talk about specifically in a little bit, region slash format equals, and we have our expression. We can use expressions in define function because that's basically an extension of define. We can use expressions in a conditional join to do the on predicate of how the two tables are related. So in this case, join file emp data at pin to multiple file job hist at pin, where, and then we have our join predicate, where emp data.pin equals job hist.pin. You can use them inside of a table. You can use them as in a compute, which is another type of creating your own virtual fields. You can use them in filtering, both with if and where. Notice if, though, says if optional total field equals a value where the where has where expression. So full expressions can be done with where, and if has to be field equals value, which would be a very simple expression. You can use them in recap. You can use them in filter file. Here's the syntax for filter file. You can use them on sort field, recap, and you can use the results of the recap in a subfoot or a footing. All right, so where you place the expression matters. And this is where we're going to talk about defines, which happens when you read a value. So each row is read, each record is read, and the defined expressions get processed. As opposed to a compute. The compute works on the aggregate total. So notice we're going to locate the file descriptions and the data files. First step when you run a procedure. We're going to select the records based on database values. So as long as your filtering is done on database values, we may keep the record at this point, or we may just throw it out. If we do keep it and you have where conditions on your defined fields, then we have to then evaluate the defined field. Then we select the records, we sort the data, we build the internal matrix, we do any aggregation. And then once the aggregation is all done, then we will resolve any computed fields. So notice it's happening way further down the line, and hopefully you're going to aggregate and have fewer records that you're going to be processing for those computed values. Okay. So in this example, I'm doing two markups. I'm doing one as a define and one as a compute. The expression is exactly the same. Just where I'm doing it is different. So if I run this, this is my output. So England markup D is 78.36, where markup C is 19.72. That's a big difference. So which is correct? Well, they both are. It depends on what you're really looking for. So let's dig a little deeper and see what's going on. So using the formula, we get 45,319 minus 37, which is the total retail cost minus the total dealer cost for England. And that gives us the 19.72, which is the markup that was computed. To look and see what the define is showing, we're going to make our procedure now into a multi-ver procedure. So we're going to sum like we did before, but I'm going to add print dealer cost, retail cost, and markup D by country. Now when I run it, I see the individual country records, and you'll see markup D is retail cost 88. Here we go. Each markup is based on the single row. So we're going to take 88 and 8878 and the 7427 to calculate the values. Then because I'm summing them, I'm summing the defined values, the total we're seeing is the 19 plus 20 plus 19 plus 18, which gives us the 78.36, which we saw for markup D in the previous report. So that's the difference. If you want to use the aggregate totals in the calculation, you want to do it as a compute. And if you want to do it as an input row by row, you're going to do it as a define. All right, so let's get into define. Syntax for define. Define file name. You can add, clear is the default. You can add it, but if you don't, any previous defines will be cleared. Or you can put an add qualifier that says, I want to add these definitions to the ones that already exist. define field 1/format, and if some of your fields that you're using in your expression are missable, then you have to determine how do you want your define field to behave. Do you want missing turned on so it will also be missable? And then the needs some, needs all, I'm not going to get into that, but that basically says, do all of the fields need to have all of the fields that you're using in your expression need to have a value, or only some of them have to have a value? Field 2, we're doing with real field equals expression, because you might want to do the calculation based on a particular segment. So when you do a define, we will anchor the define field in the same segment based on the fields that you're using in the expression. Now, if you're doing relational, most of the time you're going to have single segment tables. But if you're doing like the car file is a hierarchical data structure and has multiple segments. So if I do country and car, I'm going down to the car segment. If I do country car dealer cost, I'm going even further down. But if I want the field to be associated with a higher segment, I can say with real field. Where this really comes into play is if you're doing equals a constant, because where do you want that constant to be evaluated? So every time, if I do it with country, every time country gets red, I will reevaluate the define expression. So a good example of that would be define counter. Counter equals counter plus 1. I want to increment the counter by 1. And if I don't give it a field, it's going to happen one time. But if I say with country, how many countries do we have in the car file? We have 5 of them. So you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's not going to get any higher because we're going to reevaluate the expression every time the country changes. If we do it with car, it'll go from 1 to 10. Okay, we have to end our define section with an end, and then we have our table file name section, and then our request. The file name used in define must match the file name used in table. So why would that not be intuitive? For those of you who do more advanced things like index reads, you might have table file name dot index field name. If you do that, your define file also has to have the dot index field name. If you're using app names, if I want to do table file base app /car or IBISAMP/car, then your define also has to have the app name in front of it. Okay, basically just said that. You can have as many defines as you need, only limited by memory. You can also have as many defines that you think you're going to use. All of them will be parsed, but only the ones that you have in your query will then be evaluated. A join will clear any previously defined fields for the host file under normal circumstances. And I believe I have a thing that comes up that talks about the unnormal circumstance. Defines processed on each record input. For multiple defines of the same name, the last one wins. For an if then else expression, if you did not specify an else condition and the if evaluates to false, then the define field will retain the previous evaluated value. So this is the case where your join will not clear your define if you have the setting keep defines turned on. The default is off, but if you have it turned on, then you won't lose the previous and you don't have to do the define file add. Set short path. So we have set short path equals SQL or set short path equals focus, which is the default. This determines the behavior if you're doing a join to all or a left outer join when you don't have a child record. If it's set to focus and you have an expression in your define that uses child fields and you don't have a match from your parent to the child, anything that's defined using the child fields will then become missing. If you would rather evaluate the expression taking into account the missing value, then you want to set short path equals SQL, and then we will actually evaluate your define. But if you don't have a condition for if the child field is missing, then it's probably not going to do you much good. Here's some advanced syntax where you can put different parameters or key or tokens before the equal sign. So here we have geographic role, title, description. So just like in your synonym and your master where you have title and descriptions at the field levels, you can also add them to define fields. And that is all I have. Are there any questions? Somehow, here we go. QA. I don't see anything. Nope. Okay, let me stop sharing. All right. Renee, you are up.
I'm up. Okay. So let's share my screen. Just give me a moment. Okay. We should see the WebFOCUS Hub displaying.
Yes, we do.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's session, Focus Fridays. After learning all the cool stuff Walter just talked about with define, it's a very important topic. And in next month or so, I'll be showing you from a report perspective from Designer. So you'll see how you can calculate and create those expressions directly within Designer. But today's topic is about documents and creating documents in Designer. So we talked about in the past, you can create visualizations within Designer, standalone, chart, report. But if you have large amounts of data, it would be nice to be able to combine those different visualizations together. And the way you do that is via document. So it's a way of showing large amounts of data in an easily distributed file format. You get multiple formats, multiple pages, and it really does give you the flexibility of conveying information about your data. So that's why it's an important topic to go over. And the very first thing that I always like to review is navigation. How do you start building a compound document or a composed document, as we call it? So in the WebFOCUS Hub, you have the plus menu. And if you hover over, you'll see in the content section, you'll see composed document. Remember, create visualization, that's your standalone report charts. Assemble visualizations, that's taking your visualizations and putting them together, existing content. You can create a portal, but composed document creates a compound document. So if I just click that, it'll open up a blank canvas, compound document canvas for you within Designer. Looks very similar to Designer and a standalone visualization with some little differences, right? So that's how you would start it. But another possibility could be, and I like to showcase it in case this is something you're creating portals and you want to have this kind of flexibility for different level users, assemble visualizations. If I start that, so now here I'm creating a page from existing content. I'll just pick blank template for now. And on the sidebar here for containers is a container called Explorer. Explore data, that's natural query language against different synonyms that you have. You can query your data and answer questions. But Explorer, I'm just going to double click, bring that container in. And that gives you a view of your workspaces and everything. Now, there's this plus content here, but we're in preview, so you really can't click that. It's not going to run. I actually need to run this page and let it display and come up. And now I'm in my workspace, but I haven't gone to the level of my content. But if I click the plus content, you'll see I have Designer and I can select Compose Document. And then also, if I go to my content and go a level deeper, you'll actually see this menu has a lot more options where I might see application, info assist, chart report, etc. But Designer, still you have composed document. And certainly if I click that, then it opens up and I, again, get a blank document canvas to start creating a compound document or compose a document. So I'm just going to close that out. So those are the two ways we navigate. So we'll use the standard here, plus and compose document. And this is really to give you an introductory level if you've never utilized this. So I like to review the tool and what's available. And I'll try to give you context about where certain features were at different release levels, recognizing that not everyone might be at the latest release level. And so the very first thing we have is the toolbar, the designer toolbar going across for a composed document. And we have our little application menu here that I'm hovering over on the upper left-hand corner there. You can see that's the WebFOCUS Designer menu. I like to call it the little hamburger menu. And if I click that, what I'll see is I have a limited options here right now. I can create a brand new document. I can open something that's existing, so it'll open up the dialog, or I can close what I'm at. This menu will expand as I do development within the document, so just to be aware of that. But that's what you have when you start off. Now over here, we have our little save icon and undo, redo. Right now, they're grayed out because we haven't done anything yet within the tool. On the top here, you'll see two tabs. You'll see data and document. If you're in a standalone visualization, you'll see data enabled, and then you'll see the visualization side. Here, it's a document because we're in the document mode of Designer. Data is disabled right now. Starting in release 9.3, not only with compound documents can you create them from existing referential visualizations that you have already available to you, but you can actually author new content as well. But right now, we haven't done anything to indicate that we're authoring new content. So you'll see that this tab is disabled. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But when we author content, you will see it does get enabled. So you can actually use the data tab component on newly authored content for your compound document. Okay, so then off all the way over to the right-hand side, we have our little option to hide and show panes. So I like to show this. So all of them are enabled right now, but if you want a little extra real estate, if I click resources, so that'll uncheck it, then you'll see that sidebar and resource panel, was hidden at this point. And you can see this is unchecked. If I recheck it, you'll see the sidebar, and I'm hovering over, and its associated resource panel is now redisplayed. Now, of course, the same thing. Settings and format will take care of this. That's format, depending on, you'll see different tabs depending on if you're authoring content or not. But if I uncheck that, you'll see that that is hidden, and I'll bring that back. And then the last thing is the template picker on the very right-hand side. Right now it's grayed out, again, because we haven't authored any content yet, but it could certainly be available once we do. And then if I uncheck that, you can see that's hidden, and then I can bring that back, of course. So I'd like to go through a little detail here. Now we have also this visualization toolbar that's available here. Now this very first button right here, add container, if you were to click that, what that says is you want to author new content. I'm not going to do that yet, especially for the first example, but I wanted to showcase that's what you would actually click if you want to author new content. Then it brings up a dialog to select the synonym for that new content. And then we have our little icon here for the set command. That's a 9.3 feature as well. And again, remember, authoring content is also a 9.3 feature. So any 9.3 release level has this capability. Then we have the page dropdown. And what we have here is you can add pages. So it just doesn't have to be a single page, of course. That makes sense. And you can duplicate a page. And certainly, if I were to just click plus add page, it adds another page. Automatically, it'll just take the next number available and make that page N of it. So if you had page 1, 2, 3, and I add a page, it'll be page 4. If I had page 1 and 2 and 3, I rename 3 to something else, and then I add a page, it'll be page 3, because that's the next number up, because I did a rename. Now, if I have the little icons here where I can delete, I can duplicate. So if I do a duplicate, you'll see it does the same page name with a parenthesis copy around it. I certainly can move pages around if I want with the little arrows. I can also drag and drop to move them. So I can delete here if I want to, but I can also right-click contextually rename, duplicate, and delete as well. So I'm going to say yes, and it'll always prompt you, do you sure you want to delete that page? Yes. And then I'll also delete again. And what I like to showcase again is now you notice the trash icon is disabled. And if I right click, I don't have delete because there must be at least one page to the document. They'll never let you delete down to 0 pages, obviously. And you could double click if you want to rename rather than right click contextually, do a rename. Then we have our output format more over to the right hand side here. And then we also have our run button. Now the output format drop down, has 5 different formats available. PDF, if you were in 9.1, this would have been grayed out and you would have PDF as the only output option. In 9.2, we added HTML for our Analytics Anywhere, HTML for standard HTML output, PPTX, PowerPoint, and with PDF we already had. And so the drop-down became enabled in 9.2. In 9.3, we added the XLSX format available to you as well. Okay, and now just going over to the sidebar all the way over on the left-hand side, we have our outline, which we can right-click and view source. And you know I'm fond of showing the source code. And since you're attending Focus Fridays, a lot of you are coders out there, like to see the code. You can just see there's a skeleton built for the document. I just wanted to showcase that. You can certainly download that code if you wanted to for purposes of reviewing it separately. If you click fields, it'll have this area where it says add data source to create new content. What it means is you have to actually click this add container button to author new content. And then there's containers, and content is adding existing referential content that you have that already is available to you. And then controls only has a text box. You can add a text box and drag this into your document on the canvas and style accordingly. And that's been available since 9.2 as well. So here we have our outline. And now let's go to the page, right? Because the page is important just to understand the concept. Now this page, even if you have multiple pages, what you do applies to all of the pages. You do have a page size option. So by default, it is letter, but you certainly can do legal, PowerPoint slide, etc. You can pick appropriate page size. Units, by default, is inches. I think the document still says centimeters, but it is inches and has been inches as the default. And you'll notice that you have a ruler here. And if I position, you can see the little black lines of where my cursor is positioned on the document and everything. But you can see here, you have 8.5. And if I scroll down in the canvas to 11, and certainly if I change the units as appropriate points, you could see the scale, the ruler change accordingly. Same thing with pixels, and then also centimeters. And I'll bring it back to inches. And then I'll just showcase also, obviously, you can pick landscape as well. So you can see if I scroll over, you can see 11 on the top for the ruler, 8.5. But I'm going to put it back to portrait just to set it as the default. So that really is a really quick overview of the tool and the capabilities thereof, and referencing the idea of what was available at different release levels and everything like that, just to get. So I know I want to get started. So just to start fresh, let me just leave, come back in. So we're starting a very fresh document. And this document that I'm going to create is based off of what's in the user guide. They don't walk you through the samples in creating the content, but I tried to kind of match it up, at least something. So it was something that you had as reference and available to you. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to go into my retail demo. And just to start off, I'm only going to utilize existing content, just to say. And this is something that you would have been able to do even at the 9.2 release level, what I'm going to showcase. So the very first thing that I want to bring in is I'll bring in gross profit by store type. Now I could drag this content over. So you saw I navigated with the arrows. I can certainly search for content. But I know this is the piece of content that I want to add to this page. So gross profit by store type. I could drag it or I could just double click it. Now, whether it's a report or a chart, you'll see that the height and width by default will come in as 3.5 and 5. So the height will be 3.5 inches, the width will be 5 inches by default, and that's for reports and charts. For images, when you bring them in, it'll bring it in actual size, but you certainly can resize them, and that's absolutely appropriate. So for this one, I actually do want to resize. And by the way, what you're seeing here in the output format, because remember, you're referencing existing content, so whatever you have set up for your data and the limits thereof, that's what you're seeing here in preview. So if I had said, apply all the data when I created this content, gross profit by store type, then I would be seeing all of the data here even in preview. But it's actually limited, so what you're seeing here in preview is going to look different than when you execute it at runtime, because runtime is going against the whole data set that the synonym points to, which is, by the way, just WF Retail Lite. And in my sample, it's flat file, so it will be a little slower. I do that deliberately for demo purposes, although today might be a little slower with creating some pages. So here I just want to, and certainly you can use the little handle here at the bottom, sizing handle, to resize accordingly. And you'll see that with charts, they resize automatically as well. We don't bring in IA charts into, you won't see that on the list of content that's available to you, nor would it be if you had some other compound document. Can you bring in another compound document, compound layout document? From a source code perspective, you can't bring that in. It won't allow, that option's not there as well. I know it's something customers have asked for and we're looking into, but that's not there. Certainly with 9.3, you have the ability to take InfoAssist requests and convert them into Designer. You could take a potential InfoAssist chart and bring that into Designer and then have it referenced in a compound document. That's certainly valid, but I just wanted to make that point for any InfoAssist charts. So for reports, you certainly would be able to reference them and bring them in automatically. So here I'm just going to change this. I'm going to do it here this way. I'll make it 3.4 and 4. And then I'm just going to move this. And you can just click it and drag and drop. You can do click or shift click to have multiple objects to move them around at the same time if you want to. You'll notice the numbers some sort of subtly change once you change it. You can certainly change it back, but I find it's fairly accurate enough to give you the precision that usually you're looking for. Now I want to add another piece of content here, and here I'm going to do revenue by year. So I'm going to double click that in. You'll see again it comes in as 3.5 and 5. And here I'm going to resize it to 3.4 and 4. And then I'll drag it into the position that I'm looking for. So far, pretty straightforward. And you notice when I clicked in the canvas, then you're seeing the canvas information here. And certainly when I click an item that is on the canvas and put my focus on that, it has that red dotted line border going around it, so you know where you're focused on and what you're changing. And then I want to add one other thing. I want to add a report. So I'm going to do this store business region report. And you can see that also came in as a 3.55. And I'll position this down here. And I don't know, let's make this like 3.6. And it's 7.8. We'll go across the page a little bit on this one. This is a fairly small report. It's not going to extend beyond the page. I can move that around if I want. Again, you'll see the numbers adjust accordingly. Now, what I wanted to showcase here is, as easy as that, I've already created a compound document with 2 charts and a report. Again, I know this is fairly simplistic, but what I wanted to do is showcase this. Let's showcase this with Active first, right? Analytics Anywhere. And let me just run that. It might take a little bit, but you definitely have the ability with the different output formats to choose what's appropriate, right? And that's part of the flexibility is, right, you can have multiple pages, and on top of that, choose what output format that you want for that particular compound document. So I'm letting this run, but certainly I could choose different outputs as well. And what I like about Active is it gives you the ability to interact, and you can see the report came back. I have page 1 here. Had I multiple pages, you would see page 2, page 3, and you'll see that. And then you can see, of course, I can expand and I can, maneuver appropriately. I won't go into details. It's not strictly about Active, but you get the idea of, you can see the output easily was generated. You can see it looks different than what's in preview because now we're running against the full answer set based on that request. Now, I'm also going to just showcase this quickly for PowerPoint. And that's going to just take a minute to run. And again, just bear with me only because the data source that I have for this environment is just flat files. So it takes a little bit. But I wanted to just showcase, just to be thorough, all the different options that are available to you. And certainly, the output will come in a moment. There we go. And you can see it's PowerPoint. And let me just open that up. And I did this portrait. Maybe you would want it landscape, but you could certainly see how the output is generated. And then just for reference, even though I know we talked about XLSX, Excel output last time, I'll just run it. What I did talk about at the very end of last month's session with in Focus Fridays with Excel output is I did talk about the document composer at the end, building something and then using the source code to manipulate and adjust. Eventually, we'll make that available in the UI. But that capability from a language perspective is there in 9.3 where you can control the positioning in Excel of the different components. So I'm going to just keep that and let's just showcase this because what you'll see is you'll see the charts one after the other, right? But you can take a look more closely to last month's presentation to see how that can be accomplished and how you can reposition from. So you could build it through the tool. But then after that, you can adjust the code to be able to get the output that you're looking for with Excel. And I just wanted to reference that in case you weren't able to, review last month's session or attend. Okay, so that's Excel. So now let me change to PDF. And then I wanted to do one other thing. I wanted to say, let's add an image just to showcase images real quick. So I'm doing a search and I'm going to double click Blue Hills and the image comes in at its actual size. Now notice you see 0, 0. Easily way to take care of that is just click on the canvas, the page canvas. You see I got my page thing back. And now click on the image and you'll see the actual image height and width appear. And you can see the red border around it and everything like that. And I want to change this to be 3.5 and let's make it 8. And then lock aspect ratio is something I would recommend because if you're going to start changing your images and everything, they could get distorted. You can see I'm scrolling down. I just kind of positioned it. So I'm going to kind of lock it in just for that reference. And then let me actually run this with that image so you can see how easy it was to reference an image and bring it in. Just let it run. Just take a moment. And then I'll just showcase it quickly for HTML as well. And you should get that output. And here it is. And I'll just do it as a single page just so that you could see it there, right? So it looks very nice. And then just to be thorough and go through all the outputs, let's do it for HTML so that you can see that output as well. But that was pretty straightforward. Again, this is right now, all I've referenced is existing content. I haven't authored any new content in this page, in this document, I should say. And this is what you would absolutely be able to do even if you're at a 9.2 release level right now, what I'm showcasing. Certainly, obviously available in 9.3. But from 9.2, definitely you should be able to showcase, and you can see there, we got our image and everything. So that's kind of our first demo, right? And again, I didn't author any new content. I'm doing that deliberately. So I'm going to leave. And that's the first one I wanted to show. So I'm going to come back in and I'm going to compose a new document. And for this one, I'm going to bring in a report. Well, let's see. Here's an overflow report. And I'm just going to bring this into my first page. And again, 3.55. And here I'm going to adjust this to... let me bring it up here a little bit. And let's see. I'll make it like a 9.5 and 8. I want to kind of take up the page. All right, and you scroll down, you can kind of see that's where I'm at. And what I want to do is I want to run this, and I'll let it run as PDF. because I want to talk about overflow. So this report is going to be more than a single page, unlike the first document that we just created, that you just seen me demo, that I reviewed. This one is actually going to go beyond. Now, again, it's still a pretty simplistic report, but it's going to go beyond one page. So I'm doing a PDF output, and you can see now I have 2 pages. And let me just fit it into a single page, and you can see, took up, the whole, what I had sized in on the first, for the page, and then it went to the second page. One thing to recognize that I should make clear is that when you bring charts into the compound document, you notice that the containers, when I resized them, the charts resized. And you'll see more of that in a little bit. But for reports are a bunch of columns and rows in this position. So how you have that report referenced, however it is set up in that referenceable request, is going to come in the way it is. And if there's not spacing, you might see overlaying of data and everything. So it might not be quite what you want. So you might have to go back to what you reference. It's just bringing a reference into the document. That's all we're doing. Okay. So for report, that looks good. So what I want to do is I want to change this, and I'm going to make this height 6 because I'm going to take less space. Okay, and you can kind of see now at the bottom of the page, I have that, right? And I'm going to run that. And what I wanted to showcase is just to be aware of when your report overflows, depending on how you size that container on the page, it's going to take that space up. It's not going to utilize or leverage additional space. So what you'll see now that I'm running this report, instead of getting 2 pages, I'm going to get more than that, I believe 3 pages. And you can see there are 3 pages. And let me just showcase it from a page perspective. And now you can see that extra white space on the bottom. That's certainly expected and valid. But I wanted to make that point so that you can see you don't have control yet about that kind of overflow. I know that's something that customers certainly would appreciate, having that capability. But right now, it does overflow, and you can control, and maybe you want to think about maybe putting that report on its own page for overflow purposes. But I just wanted to make that point. So I'm going to come back, and I'm actually going to fix this document and put this back, that content to 9.5. And now you can see it's taking more of that page back up and everything. So now, and yeah, okay. So we can see that that's what I would expect. So now what I want to do is I'm going to add another page. And I'm going to focus and position on that page. So now you can see if I want to transfer between pages, I just select that page. And now you can see I'm on page 1. And then I'm going to pick page 2. So now I'm on a brand new page. It kind of shows you here the page thing there. But again, remember, this applies to the entire document, not just to a specific page. So now what I want to do is I'm going to add 2 other pieces of content on this page. So what I want to do is I'm going to add my 2 pie chart. And I'm going to leave that sizing. I'm going to kind of put it up there. And then I'm going to add my stacked bars. And I'll bring that down over here a little bit. And I'm going to change that to be something like 6.5 and 8. Something around there. I don't want to take up the rest of the page with that. So now I can see I have 2 charts on this page. And just for purposes of what I have at the moment, I'm going to run that. And just to confirm, I still have my page 1 here. And you can see it's still utilizing most of that first page. And let me just run that. So now you're going to see the difference. So I'm going to have the pages from the first page, which is the overflow report. And then I'm going to have a page with those 2 charts. Let me just give a chance for that to run. And I know I'm stepping through this, but I find that this is a way I think to best understand the capabilities of Compose document within Designer. So we'll let that run. It should come back a second. And here we go. And then I'm going to showcase the whole page. So now you can see I have page 1 and page 2. That's my overflow. And now page 2 here, which is page 3 in the actual document, is the 2 charts that I just added onto page 2 on the canvas. So far, so good. Looks great. Now I want to showcase what's available in 9.3. So I'm actually going to add another page. And now I have page 3 here. I'm going to go on page 3. And for this now, I'm actually going to click Add Container. And this brings up a dialog to select the data source, very similar like when you go into Designer and you create a visualization, you have to pick a data source. You notice, remember, the data tab was still disabled because I hadn't authored any new content yet. Go into Retail Demo, and I'm going to pick WF Retail Lite, and I'm going to say Create Component. Now you see it gives me what looks like Designer to you, right? You see you have your field listings over here in the resource pane. You can see it poured into a chart by default. The default chart type is a stat chart. And let me just add some fields here right now. Let me just, and I'll fix things up a little bit, but let me see. What do I want to have here? Just as my little standard go-tos: revenue, MSRP, gross profit. Let me add product category, and then maybe, you know what, I'll put product subcategory as well. And then I'll do, let's see, sale year for color. Okay. And you know what, then I'll expand this. Let's take up a good part of the page, and you'll see that as I expand, the chart expands with it. It's automatic, right? It's a little different, like I said, with reports. And I could scroll down and I can adjust accordingly, but look more than I wanted to. Let's see. Yeah, bring that up a little bit more. Do something like that. I think that's pretty good. And then what we also did in 9.3 is we gave you the ability to, obviously, authoring new content. You can actually put the headings and footings. If I want a footing here too, because you have all the capabilities that you normally have within Designer when authoring content, I could do an enable footing and check that box right here on the bottom. You see that I'm hovering over. But here, I'm just going to, it says right-click here to edit the heading. So I could do that if I want. I think I'll showcase that in the next example, but I just kind of wanted to showcase that that's also a capability here. So then if I come back and focus, you can see the context changes and everything. So now I have this where I've created this and I have authored content now on top of this. So I'm going to just run this. Again, just got to give it a little bit of time to run. And I do apologize. I have, like I said, I do have this environment deliberately set up this way for demo purposes, as usually talking points. But the key thing here to understand is we were able to not only create a document from existing content, which is on pages 1 and 2 within Compose document in Designer, but on page 3, we actually leveraged the 9.3 capability of allowing us to author content at the same time. And it brought Designer in with all its features and functionality. And I certainly could have changed this from a chart to a report. That certainly would have been valid as well. But you have that capability. And here you can see the report. And let me just do it that way. So now you can see page 1 and 2 is the overflow report. Then we have page 3 was page 2 in the document with the 2 charts. And now you can see I have page 4, which is page 3 in the document, showcasing the authored content that we just added to this. Really pretty straightforward. And now I know what I just showcased is, it's kind of a simplistic example, but it gives you the idea of the capabilities. Now there is one other thing I do want to cover as a separate demo. So I'm going to close this out, but you kind of get the idea. And I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to go into Compose document. And coming in, I'm going to go to my content that I have already available, and I'm going to bring in existing content. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this product pie. And I'm going to showcase these, the documents created. I'll showcase these procedures for your reference and everything. But here you can see it's a multi-page chart. Product sales in the United States is what you happen to be seeing here in preview. And then I'll leave the sizing kind of where it is. And then I'm going to bring in this other, it's a report, top 25 cities report. I'm going to showcase that. And let me say, I'll do this one 6.5 and 8 too, kind of take up the rest of the page. Okay, and just scroll just so that you can see that. Okay, that's all I did. Created existing content. I have a report here, and I have a chart, which actually is a multi-page chart and everything. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another page. I'm going to focus on that. Now, certainly I can go back if I want again, just to reiterate to see what I have. But page 2 now, I'm focused on page 2. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to create new content. And what I want to do is create a document where we actually leverage the sort field, the higher order sort field, to be able to generate those pages based on that high level sort field value. So all of the content that I'm bringing into this page, the high level sort field is going to be customer country. So let me showcase this. I'm going to actually author content. So I'm going to say add a container. And again, I'm going to pick WF Retail Light and create document. Notice data is enabled. Notice the template's also available. Obviously, designer, I just wanted to reference that. So again, you still have full designer capabilities for a visualization. And for this one, I'm going to bring in just revenue. And let's see, customer state products. Now, let me just resize this. Bear with me a moment. I'm using the handles, and I kind of want to take up, and you see the chart is resizing. And that's pretty good. Positioning-wise, where I want. And then actually here is where I wanted to do the heading. I'm going to click here. I'm going to right-click, excuse me, and edit heading. And I'm going to change this to say customer state province report. Not very creative, but you get the idea. And then let's just make this 20. I'll be bold. I'll center it. I'll change the color. And then I'll click apply on the bottom. So the toolbar, like you've seen in Designer, is very similar. That's what you're seeing here. And then you have the background color as well. But I'm going to click apply. That's going to suit my needs, I think, for this. Okay. And then maybe what I'll also do is change, make it a horizontal bar. So I use the template over here. Okay. Pretty good, pretty straightforward. And one thing I wanted to reference here is coordinated field. Now, typically you would drag the field in that you would say would be the higher order sort field for all the content that's part of this document. The reason why the tool did this automatically is that the first multi-page chart has a multi-page field, customer country in it, and it recognized that, so it brought it in saying, I already know that that's really what you need is your coordinated field. Had I not had that piece of content in, I would have had to actually drag in the customer country field into the coordinated bucket to say, generate this document and generate the pages based on the values changing for, in this case, customer country. So here, I'm just going to run this. And while that's running, because it is a few pages, I'm actually going to go to the hub because I want to showcase the actual code and of those two pieces of content that I brought in. So from here, bear with me a moment, let me get there here. Products pie. I'm going to showcase it first from Edit with the Text Editor so that you can see it as a chart. And you can see here I'm summing revenue. And you can see there's two by fields, and you can see there's a higher order by field on country name, no print. And I wanted to showcase that you can tell this is multi-page because it's pointing N1 to that field with a bucket of page, right? And then color and measure based on the revenue and the product category that are part of the request. Now, just to showcase it from a source code perspective, that was how I showed it. Let me go to Designer. And I'll open it in Designer so that you can see within Designer, you can see it flashed with the field reference and then an actual value. But you can see it's really just a pie chart that I have with revenue and product category in the color, and then you can see multi-page down here. I have the customer country field, right? Now for the other report that I added to this, this is on the first page of existing content in this compound document, top 25 cities report. Let me showcase from the text editor first. And here from the text editor, you can say, here are the 3 fields that are the verb objects, the numerics. And then you can see here's our sort fields, where we have country name is the higher order one. Then I have a by total highest 25 on revenue. And then you can see city name. And you can see, obviously, this is a table file. So this is definitely a report. I'll showcase that in the source code in a moment. But here is our report. It's 1 out of 86 pages that you can see. I'm going to showcase it by showing the whole page. But you can see here the product sales from Argentina. There is the pie. And there is our top 25 cities coded. Kind of can see the revenue in sort order there. And then if I go to the next page, this is what I added on page 2 from authored document, from authored content that I created. And certainly if I scroll down, we can go down to like the United States here. You can see page 85. There's the United States and obviously the cities associated with it. And then I have my little authored chart that I added. Now, what I want to showcase too, as one last thing to review, is in this author content, I still have full capabilities. You know, maybe I want to actually sort in descending order of revenue, kind of to showcase the chart that way. So actually, let me click, and say sort descending. And now you can kind of see the impact in preview, right? And then I'm going to change the output to active because I like to showcase this as well. And then, of course, I still have page 1 with the original existing content, and I'm going to let this run. And while I'm doing that, let me come back to the top 25 cities. So I showcased that from a source code perspective, but let me show it from a designer tool perspective, just so that you can see what's there. And I'll let it bring it up in designer first. And so you can see there's the verb objects in the summary buckets, right? Quantity sold, revenue, gross profit. And then you can see the high order sort field is customer country on this. And then, and the reason why this is taking a while to load is I left this one with all data. But you can see that there. And then you can see here I have revenue. It's kind of like hidden because it's already here. And I had done a right click. And I did sort of descending and 25, that's where I had the top 25. And so what it did was it added this field over here kind of hidden because this all revenue is already part of the request with that. And that's where you saw that in the source code that I had showcased. You saw the by total highest 25 on the revenue. That was how I accomplished that. So let me close that out. And here now we have our active report. You can see there's page 1 and page 2, showcasing page 1 with Argentina. We actually have a drop down on the coordinated field. Very cool. And here I could go to page 2 and then I'll see it also is applicable to Argentina. But certainly I could actually adjust it and change this to the United States. And you can see because I'm on page 2, you can see the impact there. And then I could go back to page 1, and you can see I have my chart here and the appropriate top 25 cities associated with it. So again, I know this is an introduction. Hopefully it gets you started with creating compound documents, and I hope I showcased enough of the features that are available. And I think, again, with the coordinated field, there's a lot of great flexibility, and I love it active because you do get the coordinated field drop down to kind of change the look and say what value am I currently looking at and everything like that. One thing I will tell you is adding the field coordinated field, I have it in the heading for a chart, and it does display and will it change appropriately. If you do that in a report, it would just show the first value, but there is a set command. We are looking to address this. Set AR FLD HEAD FOOT. That's AR field head foot equal on. If you have that and just bring that compound document in, then, and it's not part of the set command to be able to change that. This should be done automatically. Your heading value in your active report would also reflect the same thing if you want it in a report instead of the chart. And I just wanted to note that for those that might be excited about. Hopefully I made you very excited about going out and leveraging Compose Document. Really, again, it's really bringing large amounts of data in different formats, multiple pages, giving you that flexibility and conveying information about your data to meet your business requirements. So I really hope that this brought to light the features and the capabilities, and that you can run and hit the ground running leveraging it. Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Renee. Any questions? You guys have been awfully quiet.
Come on, guys. I didn't stun you into Document Compose. It is, you have to try it. And hopefully using WF Retail 8 made it a little bit easy for everyone to be able to go back and kind of try it yourself.
Okay, well, that kind of then, if there's no questions, concludes the main part before we jump into my mainframe only part of this session. If you do drop, please make sure you fill out the surveys. And thanks for coming. So we'll give people a chance to drop, and hope maybe some new people will come in just for this part of it. So we'll start in just a minute. Great, see you next month if you drop. I'm going to talk about profiles. Profiles are in all of our, it's in the Focus product on the mainframe, also on Windows. So if you do stay to learn about them a little bit, there might be some mainframe specific terminology that you're not going to understand, but the concept would still be the same. So it's up to you guys if you want to stay or not. But definitely my mainframe people, we're going to jump into it. And this is all thanks to you, Laurie. Share my screen. Okay, I should be sharing.
You are.
So I did up a slide, and the slide is kind of, I think it's only one slide. So I went through it and I tried to figure out all the different types of profiles that we have in Focus. And I'm looking specifically Focus Studio. This would also be true of a reporting server on the mainframe. It's also true on any reporting server, just you're not going to have the different DD names that you're seeing here. Like your edit sprof would be in your configuration. It'd be an edit sprof .prf in your etc directory. So it's the things will be there, but just in different places. I highlighted in green the things that get processed by both Focus and Focus Studio. Blue is Focus Studio only, and the yellow is Focus only. So we start off with, we have a FocParm. So FocParm, when I was playing around, I had to move into my conf.cfg dataset, and then it was picked up. Now there is one that shipped in the one of the f.home libraries, but it wasn't until I put it into the conf.cfg that the one that I wanted to use to override the one we shipped was picked up. Then we have our server or the session profile, which is the edit sprof. And we also have, back in the day, which is still valid, FocProf, which is the Focus profile. Both of those I recommend putting in errors.prf. And again, all three of these will get run every time you start the Focus Studio server, or if you start a Focus session. In Focus, you might have a profile member in your home.fex, in your focusexec.data, in your focusexec concatenation, you might have a specific DD allocation for profile. Now, strangely, when I ran my test to see which one is taking precedence, when I had both of, or anytime I had both of them, if I had one, if I had a home.fex or a DD profile, the home.fex always took control. So I need to check my old behavior on the older versions to make sure that that's not something that is now completely different. And if it is, we need to go back to, decide which is the correct way and go back to that. I'm going to jump down to the MFD profile. The MFD profile is part of your code. It's part of your synonym. It's part of your master file. And it will call a procedure that's in your app path or in your focusexec DB name. So I listed them here in the order of that they're being run. So you're going to get FocParm, edit-sprof, FocProf, profile, and then for a focus session, you're going to then have your MFD profile. We also have user and group profiles. I highlighted them as only being Focus Studio because in my tests, I never saw where they were being picked up when I was running just a straight focus, which again might be something that we need to reevaluate. Because if you have a group and a user in one environment, you would think it would run in both. So we're going to check that out. But for right now, this is the behavior and where things are running. So how did I do all this? And that's the end of my, oh wait, one more. Go back. This application profile is in app.focusexec.data. So it's in whatever your app name is, if you have apps turned on, and it's a member in that focusexec.data library that's called profile. But it only gets invoked via a run option. And that run option is if you're in the WebFOCUS console, the Focus Studio server console, you would have to then right-click on the procedure name and do run. And then that will invoke the application profile. If you were to open up in the edit mode and click run from the edit mode, then it would not kick off the application profile. A couple other asterisks. My group and my user, I have these asterisks next to it because what you think you're running might not be what you're running. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So I think that's the end. So let me get out of here. And I'm going to go over to my mainframe. We're going to get our hands dirty now. So I'm using my installed Focus Studio environment. Here. And Focus C is a C list that will run the installed version based on your installed parameters. So here I have a master allocation, focusexec errors. So this would be a way that you would start up Focus. And all versions of Focus standalone will have a similar Focus C member. It might not be in comp.data. It might be in your Focus CTL.data. So I'm just going to run this, and I put some messages in my profiles. So if I look here, my edit sprof, I have messages. I'm typing edit sprof profile begin. At the bottom, I have an end. In my focprof, I have a type that I'm in the particular profile member, and I set some global variables. So I'm doing two things. I'm doing the types, and I'm doing a global variable set, because those will give me easy ways to see what's going on. I have a QCSWXB, which is my ID, my user ID. So I have a setting in here, auto strategy turned off, and a comment that says that I'm in profile with my user ID on it. But that, so maybe I won't jump ahead. On the server, in order to determine what your user profile is, it uses the FOCUSEC user, which determines are you coming in with OPSIS security or are you coming with PTH security? So in that case, it creates this member with OPSIS underscore my user ID. But unfortunately, in the mainframe world, member names can only be 8 characters. So we created an alias, and then the first part of the procedure has what the actual name is. And that's what I'm saying. You might create something with QCSWXB and you might not be seeing what you expect, especially if you're running one from Focus and one from the Focus Studio. All right, so let's go ahead and start the session and see what we get. Okay, we're starting. FocParm runs the very first thing, so you don't see any messages that it ran. I'll have to check what I set, but I think I either set save matrix to on or auto table F to off. But we see the sprof ran, FocProf ran, and a profile ran from f.home.fix because I put a profile in there. And that profile is studio. Turning save matrix on and typing the message and then setting the amp variable. So if I do a question mark amper, then I'll see variable 1 was set, variable 2 was set. So at the sprof ran, FocProf ran, and the profile that we found in the f.home.fix. On the other hand, if I go over to Focus Studio, I'm in the console, so I don't really have a place to see any messages. So in order to see those dash types, I would have to come now back to the mainframe and then check the Focus Studio task and look for the edit print. At the bottom. And we'll see, here's the message that the profile began, it ended. I ran my group profile, which I didn't see when I ran Focus. And I ran my user profile from this OPSIS underscore, and it should really say 2 because it's hard-coded. If I didn't want to come to the mainframe and check it out, I could have went to my terminal operator environment. And also did a question mark amper amper. And here's our different variables that ran. So my goal was to give shed some light into how the profiles work and when when they're run and the order that they're run in. Anybody have any questions? Is there something you're curious about? Because we can just go ahead and give it a try. And again, they're quiet. I know it's a Friday. It's cold out. All right. So that's all I really had. All right. Thanks for coming. And please remember to fill out the surveys. And I hope that this helped a little bit, or anything in any of the other sessions. We'll see you next month. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.